Good afternoon, my friends. It is again a pleasure for me to be here to share some thoughts with you at this time of new beginnings. I wish to share with you some thoughts that I have been thinking about and watching. I'd like you to think about going out for a walk, a 10-mile walk. You've set yourself a goal that you're going to walk 5 miles away from your home and 5 miles back. However, you have you put on your walking shoes, but these walking shoes aren't typical walking shoes. They're special walking shoes. And these walking shoes have a 10-pound dumbbell built into them so that every time you take a step, you're picking up 10 pounds as you begin your walk. Think about how exhausting that would be to walk these 10 miles with these weights on your shoes. It would not be an easy thing to do. You would get tired and you might decide to give up on your goal and not walk the 10 miles because it's just too difficult. Now, while you may think this is an absurd thought, and why would anybody walk with 10 pounds on each shoe? I want you to consider this. Many, many years ago, you came into this physical world of yours as a brand new baby, not knowing the ways of the physical world, not knowing how to speak, but you did have connection still with the world of spirit, even though you were in the physical body. Infants often have connections. They still see spirit people, they still hear spirit people, and they learn eventually to kind of start to ignore it because in their physical world, their physical parents do not have this communication, and therefore it is not reinforced and encouraged. But what is a child taught? Most of the times, they're taught the beliefs of the parents. Most of the times, they're trained in the religious beliefs of the parents and in the ideology of that. And that ideology that is learned in such as children and that continues through a person's life is very much like that 10-pound weight on your shoes. It limits you. It limits your possibilities because your range of thought is within a specific limit that is placed. Those limits were placed by the religion. You have heard the medium who is talking, I'm talking through, talk about filters using a different image of what religion has taught and how it changed, putting a color filter, a blue filter over a camera lens would change the image of what is put on the film or in the digital world now. It just would not appear in its natural state. The blue filter would make it look very blue, change the perception. And because you have been in that blue filter all your life, you do not see the blue. You do not see that it's not the true colors. What I am trying to express to you is that within your consciousness, there are many, many cement shoes, weighted shoes on different topics that you do not realize is in your consciousness that limits you. So that even when you come to the realization that religions have not been teaching the truth and that you are learning new truths to replace what you used to believe, there is still much residue that is there. There is still things that you haven't realized have been deeply rooted in your thinking that was placed by the religious filter, or the still some weight there. So what I am expressing or trying to explain to you is that releasing yourself from the religion's dogmas of the past and the superstitions of the past and the stories of the past is not a process that you snap your fingers and it's done. It is a long process and a constant process of you discovering, oh, I still think this, don't I? And taking that weight off your shoe so that you can walk more freely and more freely with each and every step. It is a process for you to think about. You have all have made tremendous changes in your lives since you've learned the truths of the spirit world and the truths of spirit communication. And you realize the chains of religions, how they have chained people to ignorance and have prevented them from being having access to the knowledge that's within the spirit world. What I am saying to you is that unconsciously there's still residue, and becoming aware of the fact that the residue is there is the first step for allowing that residue to float to the surface so that you can become aware of the of that baggage that is still within your consciousness so that you can release it at some point. And when you make that and each time you release that piece of weight, that 10-pound dumbbell, each time you release it, you can walk more freely on your path of truth. I hope you can understand what I'm trying to say. There are things that you live in your life that you are unaware that that dog was still there. There's tinges of it still there. It's not the 100-pound weight it used to be years ago, but there's still weight there that needs to be removed. So think about that. Meditate on that. Ask for this to come to the surface of your consciousness so that you can begin to remove it. And you will be able to be much more free in your expression of spiritual truths. And you will be able to feel the energy of that truth so much stronger than you ever have before once all the weight is off your shoes. I hope you understand that. We're ready for our questions.
Thank you, Carl, and welcome. Thank you for that teaching. First question is from Karen Escher. Wondering about the voice or voices in our heads, minds. Some people claim not to have an inner voice in their mind. Can this be true? Some people hear more than one voice. What are those voices? Why does the inner critic, the ego, seem to be the loudest voice in many people's minds? How do we quell intrusive thoughts? Where do they come from? Thank you.
The question that you had asked has multiple answers. It depends on the individual who you are speaking about. If you are talking about a person who is on a spiritual path, such as you are, and has the understanding that the voices that they are in their head is coming from a higher dimension, and of someone of a more enlightened, spiritually enlightened perspective, then you can understand that that voice that you hear can bring certain knowledge to the person and guide that person along their path if the person accepts it. It takes a while for a person to understand that. Yet, that being said, there are certain people who are walking a spiritual path who may not be able to differentiate that the voice in their head is coming from the spirit world and outside of themselves, and may think it's coming from their own mind and own consciousness and own self. And it can be both because the person may be so used to being in communication with spirit that they don't feel a shift. They don't feel an energetic shift. They don't feel a difference between their own thoughts and someone else's thoughts. So it's a very murky situation because everyone is different. So the thoughts that the person on a spiritual path, it can be from the spirit world, it can be from themselves as well, but it can be both, and they can't distinguish. That is one possibility. Now we talk about a person who's not on a spiritual path, who's just living their life in the physical world and may be still rooted into their religious belief that they had as a child, and they may hear a voice, and they may think that they may be trained that the voice is an evil voice coming from the devil, and if they believe that religious dogma, and it may be a spirit that's coming from a higher source, but their own perspective and their own teaching gets in the way and is coloring their thoughts. We're talking about the filter again that we were just explaining, and therefore they think it's an evil source. You have other people who may not have such a religious filter on and may just think that it's again have a voice in their own head that is speaking to them, and again can't tell the difference if it's coming from outside or inside. There are certain people, and this is part of what we were alluding to before. There are certain religions that teach you that you are born with sin, that you are not deserving of certain things, that you have to jump through all kinds of hoops to get rid of the sin in order to get to heaven, and all these other nonsense that they teach. What that does is that makes you feel that you are not worthy, and therefore it brings in a lot of self-doubt, and it sabotages what's going on in your head. So even if the person happened to hear from their, let's use the word guardian angel, who's trying to influence them, they may not feel that they could even follow that advice because they're not worthy of it, because they still believe all that stuff that they were taught, and therefore it does not they cannot bring themselves to a more spiritual fulfilling path because they feel they're not worthy of it because of the brainwashing that they had when they were a young person. So there's again a myriad of variations on this theme of that. Self-sabotage can very much come from religious upbringing, and even if the person didn't have a religious upbringing, that mindset has permeated your society. So even if you never step foot in a church, you still can absorb that self-doubt because their friends have the self-doubt that go to church, and therefore people learn that self-doubt from even not being directly influenced by church doctrine. So it is pervasive in your society. And this is part of what we were trying to explain before, that you have to come to a realization that that these thoughts are out there, and that many people ascribe to them, and you may still have part of that in your own consciousness that needs to be eliminated so you can be totally free of that and totally experience the power of your divine crystalline energy and living in that power and manifesting in that power. And therefore, uh, how often were you taught, as I was taught when I was on the earth plane? If you are manifesting, you have the slightest bit of doubt, you are inhibiting that manifestation. That was part of what the church wanted to do. They wanted to bring that self doubt in so that you couldn't manifest and you had to listen to their rules. So, this is all part of the mindset that's within the in society, and therefore something that you need to realize needs to be expunged from your consciousness so that you can manifest without doubt. And that power of knowing that it is going to manifest will bring it forth. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much. The next question is from Luvera. Hello, Carl. Can you elaborate on the truth about Samson and Delilah? Was he as strong as depicted in the Bible? Thank you.
The man that you're talking about, Samson, was a very special person because he was dedicated from a very young child to live a specific type of life, which would allow him to have more spiritual aspects being manifest within him. He was not allowed to drink wine. He was not allowed to cut his hair. There were certain rules for the Nazarenes, as they were called in those days, uh, to um, to follow. And there was a certain group of people who did practice this. Yes, he did have very special qualities because of his dedication. If you want to translate it into other aspects, although I am not saying this is true for him, but if you take certain people, if you take the person who's talking to you at this point, the physical person who's talking to you did not know him many, many years ago. That when I was about living on the earth plane, this particular band who I am speaking with was not doing any type of mediumship or a very limited amount. He was an inspirational speaker. He allowed spirit to write through him, but he was not a trance medium at the time, and he didn't could not bring forth spirit people and describe them to you at the time. Yet he dedicated himself on a certain path and certain practice and developed these gifts to the point that he is now a very good trance medium and allows me to speak through him quite regularly so that we can teach you. This is because of his dedication to the path that he chose and to allow this to happen. So if we take it back to Samson, while he was not a medium, he did dedicate himself to a certain path and a certain point that did allow him to have certain qualities that were quite unusual and outstanding. The strength part is a little bit exaggerated because, as we now know, the Bible has been edited a lot and it is not exactly true, but it is true that what happened is when Delilah cut his hair, he did lose a lot of the qualities and his strength, if you want to call it that, because that's what he believed. It was part of what he was doing his whole entire life. And this is why we talk about these filters so much, because of what you think is what you live and what you manifest. And therefore, when his hair was cut, he felt he lost all of that. His whole life's work went down the drain, and he was no longer had the strength and the qualities that he once had. The part where he was so strong and he knocked down the Philistine temple is a bit of an exaggeration, and part of the storytelling to help teach people what happens when they abandon their religious convictions and beliefs. You must understand that the book that you call the Bible is not a book of history. It is really a book of stories, is the best way to call it. And these stories were not of literal things that happened. They were very much trying to teach you something. You are probably aware of a book called Aesop's Fables, where the rabbit and the hare run a race, and then the rabbit gets tired, and the tortoise wins, and it's the tortoise and the hare, excuse me, and the slow-moving tortoise wins, and the people learn that if you go at it slowly and continuously, you can win the race. It has a moral to it. The stories in the Bible all had morals to them. They were teaching tools to teach the religious ideology that was trying to be explained. It was trying to teach that if you did not worship the one true God, there's certain things would happen to you that were terrible. They tried to teach you that mediumship was bad. They tried to teach all kinds of things in their stories. But the point is that it is not truly history as many people think it is. People have been brainwashed to think that the Bible is a word of God that he spoke directly, word for word, and somebody copied it down, and these are God's direct words. Well, that's absolute nonsense. That is not true. Scholars will tell you that, but people who want to believe it come up with all sorts of their own stories to justify their own beliefs, in keeping their own beliefs intact, even though people who analyze this can tell you that that is not true. It's not the word of God that he dictated. It is something that was written by man and a group of men, and they had an agenda when they did it. So I hope you understand what we're trying to say with all of this, and that you do need to take the Bible not as historical fact, but as morality plays, if you want to call it that. And but there are grains of truth in it. There are seeds of mediumship in it. It is not all nonsense. There are certain things that are true in there. There are certain things that were said. There are certain spiritual truths that were put in there so that it wouldn't all be fables and stories. So it is a mixture of things, but you need to approach the Bible with that understanding, and like using a sieve so you can keep the good stuff and just let the other stuff sift through and ignore it. Do you understand?
Thank you. Next question is from Carol. Uh, Today, there are many, many people in great need of help with their health. So I wanted to ask you if there have been any further advancements in technology or methods of healing people from the jabs and from the shedding. Um, Possibly the med beds. When are they going to be released, or are they going to be released to the public? Thank you.
As you understand, you are living in times that are very much changing, and the people who are trying to keep a lid on all of what you're talking about, the med beds and the advancements in medical technology, are losing their grip I want you to go back and think about when you were a child and think about the strong, strong, strong grip that religion had over so many people back then. And think about how strong it is now and think about how strong it is today. It is so much weaker. The grip that they had, they could not maintain. And because of the changing vibrations of the physical world, and the energy around it, the grip that people had on medical technology and drugs and pharmaceuticals, not that kind of drugs, are being is also waning, just like religion has waned. And you are standing on the threshold where they are going to start to lose control, and you are suddenly going to be hearing about that there are cures for certain types of cancer, that the med beds that you have heard about will be released and start to be used. However, there are med beds that are so much more advanced than the ones that you are aware of that are still being in the background and will take a longer time for them to come. But it will get to the point where they will be starting to be used, and people will be able to improve their health. This is all part of this evolving change, this increasing vibration, where people are going to be liberated from all the slavery of not only religion but of corporations and of groups of people who want to keep back medical advancement in order for them to make money on selling the medications to cure those diseases. This is coming to an end. And again, as you realize, none of this is quick change happening. It is something that is a slow process, but they are losing their grip, and it will be coming to the surface within a short period of time, within a year or two. Do you understand?
Thank you. The next question is from Luvera. Someone told me they don't experience dreams when they sleep. Is this possible? Thank you.
It is most likely not possible, but what is possible is they have absolutely no recollection of it. Some people are that way, that they dream, but there's no recall. There's no memory of it, because it's happening in a state of sleep where they do not remember. A sleep is very much like a staircase, where there are different levels of sleep, and your memory of what you're dreaming will only happen in the higher levels where you're closer to your normal consciousness. So if the person is dreaming in a deeper level, the images that are there are not recorded within the conscious mind, and therefore they think they do not dream. They just don't have any awareness of it. Do you understand?
Thank you. The next question is from Laura. Hello, why are there so many people talking about having such high anxiety in today's world? Is there something else going on, like other spirits manipulating the person's thoughts? How can one diminish anxiety? Thank you.
That is a very good question to be asking. The easiest way to diminish anxiety is to experience what we are doing here in this meeting, and that is to go and become your divine crystalline energy. You remember that when you are that energy, you are in God's perfection, in God's energy, and therefore that anxiety that you are experiencing cannot exist in that frequency. The trick is to get into that frequency. As we've been talking today about the weighted shoes, sometimes people have these uh, they have not released uh, the thoughts and doubts that they can get into that frequency. They still think that they are limited. They still believe that they are not perfected. They may believe they are not worthy of God's energy. There's lots of different doubts that a person could have within them that would prevent them from truly getting into the energy completely to experience that healing, to have that anxiety diminish. There are the easiest way to do this is what you would call either meditation or going and become emerging and bringing forth the divine energy to totally engulf and become the physical body. And I'm excuse me, that is totally wrong. You are divine crystalline energy. Your energy is much bigger than your physical body. The anxiety resides in the physical body through the physical mind. The thing is to get beyond the mind, to experience the divine energy that is you. That's a much more precise way of saying that. Excuse me again. The limitations you may have may prevent you from getting there. So to relieve the anxiety, you need to know within yourself 100,000% that you are this energy, and allow yourself to be that energy because you are that energy, and that will help with the anxiety. That is the best way to achieve what you're talking about of getting rid of the anxiety. There are certain ideas that are floating around in your world that certain types of doctors can analyze things that are in your intestinal tract because there are certain types of bacteria that enhance anxiety, and if that's balanced out, you can be less anxious. That can also be true. However, if you become that divine crystalline energy, that and you set time to be in that energy every day, that healing will heal. Being at energy will heal that bacteria and also get rid of the anxiety. So you do not have to seek help from outside. You can seek the help from within. Jesus taught the kingdom of God is within you. Your divine energy is within you. It's perfect. It's God energy. To bring it forth and to be it 100,000% will cure everything. The question is, can you release the weights off your shoes? Can you get rid of all that dogma that taught you of all that nonsense that we've been talking about? Can you do that? And that is up to each individual to wage that battle, to dissolve those doubts, and to practice sitting and becoming the power, becoming the divine crystalline energy, and being in that energy for periods of time every day, and, and healing yourself. Do you understand?
Thank you. Um, Next question is from Carol. Uh, I just wanted to know if there's any news on what Ramtha has talked about with the days of light, with the great battle in the skies that would be like 10 or 12 days with no night. Is that still on the agenda, considering all the changes in the frequencies of the earth and the people on the earth?
There is no point of having that happen unless the people are ready. And the people won't be ready until the frequency changes to a point that is high enough. So, yes, it is still on the agenda, but it is a question of, it's very much like a ratio. How many people are enlightened enough to accept all that and walk into the new age of knowledge completely? And how many aren't? When the ratio gets to be where there are the correct amount of people that are ready, things will go into motion very quickly. And the people who aren't ready will be modified in a way so that they do become ready. So that is what the teacher had talked about, and that is what it is still on the agenda, but conditions are not there yet for that to occur. You understand?
Thank you. And that appears to be our last question. Thank you so much for teaching us and being here for us. Love you.
Oh,
We want to stress to you.
I don't think I'm going to get my questions asked. Huh?
Oh, 1 second, please. Kathy, you have a question?
I have two that I typed into you. I sent them to Sydney, and I copied them and sent them to you.
I just see them here now. They just came in.
Sorry,
we-
I didn't.
We do have more questions, Spirit. So here, these are from Kathy.
Thank you.
I would
Thank you.
like to ask direction regarding further on the path toward enlightenment. And I'd like to ask about the differences and similarities.
Please start again.
Okay. From Kathy Batchman, I would like to ask direction regarding further on the path toward enlightenment. Also, I'd like to ask about the differences and similarities between mediumship, trance, and channeling, and if there are better or lesser of these to pursue regarding these from the standpoint of one's spiritual progression or unfoldment. Thank you.
Mediumship has many different aspects, or facets. One of them is trance. Trance mediumship is where the person who is the medium subverts his consciousness and allows spirit to have access and take over their personality and speaks to them. That is trance mediumship, and the person who is speaking, the spirit communicator, can be identified, although not all, they not. There are times that they are not identified, but they can often be identified. They bring forth their identity, and their history can be proven. Channeling is the same as trance mediumship, but the spirit communicator cannot have their history documented, and therefore it is that is the difference. So many times ascended masters will not have a history that a physical history that they could go to certain books or certain genealogy tables or things and prove the identity did exist. And that is the difference. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same. It's just the mechanics that are happening in the trance state are the same. It is just the verification of the spirit communicator cannot be obtained in physical records, while in trance mediumship it can. And that's the difference between channeling and trance mediumship. Platform mediumship is when the medium is in contact with a deceased loved one, and it brings forth their identity to the person who's receiving the message, and brings forth messages about that particular person or group of people, and then the medium is not in a trance state. They're in an altered state of consciousness, but not in a trance state. And they often the spirit is not speaking through the physical medium. The medium is hearing the spirit, or seeing the spirit, or feeling the spirit, and getting the information through those ways. And that is what platform mediumship is. Platform, because they're standing in front of a group of people. If they're doing a reading, a private reading, obviously there's not a platform, but it's the same communication. So that is the difference between mediumship and the trance mediumship and channeling. As far as spiritual development is concerned, there are two real aspects in order to do that. One aspect is to read spiritual books and learn certain principles about things. The other is to do what we were doing today in your service, and that is becoming the divine crystalline energy and becoming the power. Many mediums are taught to sit in the power. And what that it means is that you blend with the spirit energy. And again, the spirit energy is the same as divine crystalline energy, because the energy does not matter if it resides in a physical person or it resides in a spirit person. The God energy is the same. But sitting in the power means that you're blending in the power, but with the energy. But sitting as the power means you are the energy, and that is a much more powerful way to visualize it and to embrace it, because you are the power. Now, as we did in the service, if you wish to speak or be in communication with a spirit person, visualize that person coming to you, become the crystalline energy, see their crystalline energy, merge with them, say, we are divine crystalline energy merged in equality, and sit with them. You are sitting as the power. You and that spirit person have melded energy. You are one source of energy, and you are just sitting there. You can receive healing that way. You can receive information that way. You are synonymous at that point. You are the power. And eventually, when you come out of that state, that spirit person the energies, well, you could say, disengaged in a way, and you can go about. That helps tremendously on your spiritual growth, because it allows you to become more conscious of spirit. It allows you to communicate with spirit. It allows you to create the wiring between yourself and the spirit world, so that you can receive thoughts from the spirit world, because you are merging and you are becoming the thoughts. Now, everyone is different. Everyone approaches this differently. For some people, and even if you think about people who meditate, some people will sit there in a meditative state and have a very difficult time seeing energy. They can listen to the person say, you are in a field and you're by a stream and you see this tree, and on and on and on, and they see nothing. It is just part of their makeup. That does not mean they're not in a meditative state. They just don't see. But if they know and have a feeling that they are participating and they are experiencing that and they are in that meditative state, it is just as powerful as if they were actually seeing what they were told to see. So if you sit in the power and you say, well, I merged with the spirit, but I don't hear anything, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you have merged in the energy. And there are things that are happening that you may not be aware of. You may not be aware of the communication. You may not be able to feel a difference. You may not feel anything. You may not see anything. Doesn't mean that nothing is happening. You are gaining, you are benefiting from it dramatically, even though you don't feel it. But eventually, at some point, you will. So do not become discouraged if you follow this discipline and sit as the power and say, nothing's really happening. I don't feel it. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Keep seeing yourself as light, as growing light, and keep doing it. And you will feel a difference. And you may not feel the difference as you're sitting there, but all of a sudden in your daily life, you may see things, notice that things are different, that things you're reacting differently, and so forth. This is all the benefits from sitting as the power. Do you understand?
Thank you. And Kathy has one other question. I'd like to ask about the revaluation of currencies that is said to be progressing and whether there is truth to countries' currencies being gold backed, and if or to what degree these things may occur and when. Thank you.
The question that you're asking about is very difficult to answer because it's very much, y'all think of it this way. There are two main forces on in the world, the forces of darkness and the forces of light. Think of yourself on a boat and think of yourself on a boat in the ocean. Even if it's a cruise ship, a big cruise ship. As the boat is on the ocean, there are certain waves that go up, and that could be the light, and there's certain waves that go down, and it is the darkness. So the boat does not sail straight across. It goes up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. And this is what's happening. There's a tug of war between the forces of good and light. So it's very difficult for even us to predict how things are going to happen and definitely when things are going to happen. There is a certain amount of truth to the fact that there are people out there that want to have a currency reevaluation and change. And that is very true. There are people who hold things in the light who are trying to prevent that from happening. So it is a back and forth. We would suggest that it would be very wise for you to take a good portion of whatever savings you have and purchase gold or silver with it and have it in your own keeping. Do not let anybody else have it. Put it in as safest place as you can can find in your own home, not in a bank vault, and to have that, and that will keep you protected, because there has never been a time in all of history where the value of gold has become zero and the value of silver has become zero. So having these precious metals, as they're called, is a good insurance policy, let's put it that way, for whatever may come. But yes, we feel that there will be a time where the currencies will go under a major change. And what that may be is a very difficult to ascertain, because it's very much like the ship in the sea with the up and downs, and it's hard to realize what is actually going to end up. But we would suggest to have the insurance of having the precious metals in your hand in your house. Do you understand?
Thank you. And we have no more questions. Thank you so much.
It is been a pleasure for us to talk with you. We find it quite amusing that the same thread that I began talking about kept coming through on the answers of the questions. So again, we ask you to try to eliminate as much as you can of the baggage that you're carrying around and to sit in the power as much as you can. Now, I'm not saying for hours. What I'm saying is on a regular basis, even if it's only 5 minutes a day, it is beneficial. 15 minutes would be even better. We're not saying to sit for an hour or 2 hours. That is asking way too much in your busy, hectic schedules. But doing it on a daily basis is definitely has very positive qualities, and it does not have to be for long periods of time. That is what we're trying to get across to you. So, with that being restated, we are about to withdraw from you today. It has been a pleasure to assist you. It is so good to be in contact with each and every one of you and to meet new people who have come across our path. We welcome you and hope that you will continue to join us uh, and uh, and continue your path of enlightenment. And it is our wish that your shoes become ever lighter every day. So be it.